Good morning, Steeler Nation. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. I hope the start of your work week is going very well. You're listening to me and you're hearing some Steeler football content, so it must be going great. I'm Daniel J. This is State of the Steelers. Today on the Huddle, we're going to be talking a little bit about Mason Rudolph. And he had a birthday yesterday, so happy birthday to you, Mason. And the Mason isn't the most well-liked quarterback out there, or has ever donned the black and gold uniform. And today I kind of want to go into what happened to Mason. Why isn't he? Where did he go wrong? Where did the situation go wrong for Mason Rudolph? Um, and why is he not so liked? And so that's what's today on the Huddle. Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and that notification button. We have some great content going out this week. Tomorrow on the Huddle, we'll have the Steel Twins guest on, so you don't want to miss those guys. Those guys are great. They're a hoot. It's a great conversation that you don't want to miss. On Wednesday, right now, it seems that we'll be having Chris Hendricks from the Who Dat Saints Nation podcast on the show. He is he's going to be part of a segment that I'll be doing. Once the season starts, we're going to kind of try to preview it right now. And when the season starts, basically what it is a segment that I'm going to be calling Spygate, so to speak. And we're going to be talking to, YouTube creators from that cover the opposing team that we play that week. Now, this year, the Pittsburgh Steelers are playing the NFC South, and Chris Hendricks is a member of the Who Dat Saints Nation podcast, Saints, obviously. And so we'll be playing them later on this season. In fact, me and Chris will be going to that game, the Steelers and the Saints. And he's going to give his insight on Wednesday about the Saints and the state of the NFC South and what the Pittsburgh Steelers can expect this year. Also, on Friday, we're going to have the Arsenal DB. He is a YouTube creator, content creator for the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. He gives his opinion on the Steelers, and he'll be on the show on Friday. You don't want to miss any of those shows. You don't want to miss any of the content, so you can hit that like and subscribe button. Also, guys, in the past, here recently, we just gave away 2 tickets for the Steelers game against the New York Jets on October 2nd. We gave away those 2 tickets on July 4th. We're going to be doing another giveaway probably to the middle of the season. There's a couple of things that have to happen before we get to that giveaway. First, the channel has to hit 1,000 subscribers before the bye week. So we have some time. I'm hoping we can get there before the start of the week, start of the season, the regular season, that is. The second thing is the Pittsburgh Steelers need to make the playoffs. And the third thing is that playoff game that the Pittsburgh Steelers play in has to be at home. If those 3 things happen, State of the Steelers channel will be giving away 2 tickets to a subscriber for that playoff game in the lower level at Acrisure Stadium. That's gonna get. I'm gonna have to get used to saying that, but that's one hell of an intro, guys. Probably the longest one I've had so far. With that being said, I'm Daniel J. This is State of the Steelers, and welcome to the Huddle. So yesterday was Mason Rudolph's birthday. Happy birthday to you, Mason. I've been a fan of yours, and if you're watching, I've been a fan of yours, and nothing personal. I think you're a great guy. I just think that as a Steelers player, the train has moved on, so to speak. And today what I want to do is talk about what happened, why did that train go, where did it go wrong, and all that. And so let's get into it. So Mason Rudolph was selected in the 3rd round in the 2018 draft by the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was, throughout that offseason, there was a lot of rumors and speculation that the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to be drafting Mason Rudolph, even as high up as in the 1st round. There was a lot of comps to a young Ben Roethlisberger and the ability to move around in the pocket and have a deep throwing ability or an accuracy deep ball. I didn't really see that when I saw his tape. I saw more of a, maybe a Kirk Cousins type of quarterback, but somebody that could potentially be, a guy, maybe not the franchise guy, maybe not somebody who was going to have 18 years of success like Ben Roethlisberger did, but a guy. And so I was excited to see him, be drafted. I'll be honest, I saw a decline in Ben Roethlisberger's play in 2018. So I thought that the draft pick in that year wasn't a bad one. I know that initially, and kind of how Mason's introduction to the Pittsburgh Steelers started off on a bad foot when Ben Roethlisberger wasn't pleased about the addition of Mason Rudolph. You know, right there, I think that kind of started a divide, so to speak, within the fans as far as, hey, should we have gotten him? Should we not have gotten him? Ben Roethlisberger stays, he can play for a few years, but here recently he had been telling the Steelers faithful and the organization that he was going to retire at any year. In fact, in 2017, there was a time where he stated that he may not even have it in him anymore, and that he had to, retirement had been in question for a while. And so 2018 comes in, Mason Rudolph sits the bench the entire year, doesn't play at all. 2019, I think this is where some of the comparisons to Ben Roethlisberger entrance into the NFL as the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers started to come in. The Pittsburgh fan base, and myself included, I'm one of the Steeler fan base, we see signs, so to speak. Last year, the biggest sign was that the Steelers were going to, make a run like in 2005, because the Steelers barely made it to the playoffs. They're going to go up against a team that beat them earlier in the season, similar to like 2005 when the Steelers went into Indianapolis, and we're going to take the long road and the hard road and actually win the Super Bowl. And everybody saw the writing on the walls, and everybody was extremely disappointed when it didn't happen in that first week against the Kansas City Chiefs there in Arrowhead Stadium. And so I think the same type of mentality and the same type of searching for signs, so to speak, happened with Mason Rudolph come, 2019 season week 2 against Seattle Seahawks, when Ben Roethlisberger is, injured and is left out of the game with a season-ending elbow injury. And then enters Mason Rudolph, very similar fashion to Ben Roethlisberger when, entering for the injured Tommy Maddox after his elbow injury in week 2 against the Baltimore Ravens back in 2004. In that game, Ben Roethlisberger didn't win. He came back. They came close, and very similar to Mason Rudolph. In fact, I will say that I believe that if you were to go back and look at Ben Roethlisberger 2004 debut against or entrance into the league against the Baltimore Ravens, in that game and in that game alone, I believe Mason Rudolph played better than Ben in that first game, and Mason played better against Seattle in that first game. But after that, it just kind of seemed like the difference between Ben Roethlisberger and Mason Rudolph kind of showed. One thing that I've noticed a lot about Mason Rudolph is that he's not the best at giving interviews. He stutters a lot. He's all over the place and whatnot. And nothing wrong with it. It's just, it seems like he seems to have problems when the lights are on, when there's pressure, whether it's on the field or in front of the camera. And that's what I kind of saw with him in 2019. He was very, I won't say conservative, maybe, to the extreme. He didn't want to make any mistakes, things of that nature. It was very apparent on what he was doing. And he kind of came out of his shell against towards the second quarter there against the Baltimore Ravens before he got knocked out by Earl Thomas. In fact, on that play, he scrambled out. He created time with his feet, threw the ball on the run to James Washington, who was also en route, and he threw it on the money. And I believe it was for a first down, and I was like, finally, all right, here we go. It's starting to move. It's starting to click, and then there's Mason on the ground, unconscious. Now, I think, and in my opinion, if Mason Rudolph would have waited a couple of games to come back, and I think things would have turned out a little bit different, especially in the 2019 season. He gets knocked out. Duck comes in the next game against the San Diego Chargers and has the upset. Well, were they the Los Angeles Chargers at that time? I think they were the San Diego Chargers still. So it is what it is. Anyways, so he goes into to the Chargers Stadium, and he ended up upsetting them and winning, starting a little bit of a debate between the fan base of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Some were, let's bring back Mason. Some were, hey, let's go with Duck. And I think Mason Rudolph saw that, and that's why he kind of maybe, in my opinion, gone in a little bit quicker. He was completely knocked out. They took his face mask off. He was unconscious on the ground, walked out of the stadium looking really loopy, and yet he only missed one game. It was just kind of, a situation that I think he should have stayed out a little bit longer and grabbed his composure, got his feet under him, and went back when he was more ready and prepared mentally. Because the rest of the season, you can tell that as soon as he made a mistake, he just shut down. There was no coming back. It was bad. I mean, the stats aren't bad. I mean, let's look at Mason Rudolph. Let's just go straight up into 2019. He started in he started in 8 games. He was 5-3, so he had a winning record for 2019. In fact, that was the last time he actually won a game that he started. It was in 2019. He's not won since. He's played in 2 games since, or he started in 2 games since, both once against the Browns and once against the Lions here recently. But let's go back to 2019. He was 176 for 283, 62.2% completion for 1,765 yards, 13 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. The one thing that I see on this right here is the adjusted yards gained per pass attempt. It's kind of low. It's in the 5.7. You want to see that closer to 6.4. That means it's just kind of dink and dunk, throwing underneath the ball, underneath. And so, overall, his stats aren't bad. Now, in 2019, he goes into the Cleveland game where he gets the helmet to the head from Myles Garrett and all the bad publicity that comes after that. At this point, at that time, the Pittsburgh Steelers fan base were really starting to turn on Mason because the team offensively was looking very stagnant. They weren't doing anything. And our defense was the Steelers defense was just playing lights out 2019. And we had a competent, quarterback. And another thing that a lot of folks don't forget or don't remember is that there was so many drops in 2019. You had Deontay Johnson, who, he had more drops in 2020, but he wasn't sure-handed in 2019. It was his rookie season. You had Eric Ebron, who also had a lot of drops. And Moncrief was good grief, is what I say. But with that being said, it was just one of those type of situations where nobody could catch the ball. There was a lot of drive killers, and he really took a lot of heat for it. But that's what happens when you play this position. You're going to either, take the credit when it's not yours, or take a lot of heat when it's not yours too. And he did so too. But the one thing that he failed to do during his time while he was playing is elevate the players around him. Even Ben Roethlisberger at his age and whatnot was able to elevate the line above him and get a team with a poor offensive line to the playoffs. I digress. Let's go back into Mason. So Mason gets benched in Cincinnati after having 2 or a game and a half. So in Cleveland, he threw for 4 interceptions or something like that. He threw a tremendous amount of interceptions. In Cleveland, he was on his pace again for a bad game. So then the Steelers benched him for Duck, right? Duck plays pretty decent against Cincinnati, gets the win in Cleveland and in Arizona. I was actually in Arizona for that game in 2019. And what I remember from that game was Deontay Johnson won that game on a punt return back. He had been criticized throughout the year that year, Deontay Johnson was, for his ability to catch the ball and for bringing in the punts and the kickoffs. He was muffling punts and kickoffs. He's had an issue with his hands, ladies and gentlemen, for a long time. Deontay Johnson is. It's not something that just happened last year or the year before. It's since he's been in the league, he's had an issue with his hands, whether it's catching the ball, being thrown to him more than 15 yards, or it being a punt. And this year he ended up having a punt return, and I think he ended up making a Pro Bowl because of this one punt return that he had. But at the end of the day, he really seriously did have a problem. He still does have a problem with his hands when it comes to catching. And so then Doug goes into the Buffalo Bills game, and he has a horrible game. Then, at this point, we are still in contention for a playoff game. For a playoff run. And so, during the New York Jets game, the loss there on week 16 and I believe it was the 15th game for us, week 6 for the Steelers, week 16 for the NFL. That game right there, Duck gets benched and Mason comes back in and is playing pretty decent. He's throwing the ball accurately over the field, he's throwing the ball down the field. That was one thing that Duck wasn't able to do. It was push the ball down the field. Rudolph was. And so it was unfortunate that he gets knocked out in this game. He's done ski. He gets an injured shoulder, which requires or he has an injury to his chest, one of the two, which required season-ending surgery. So then what happens? Steelers don't make the playoffs. The fan base is upset. We wasted a year with the defense. 2020 happens, COVID, no preseason, nothing. There is no chance for any Steeler fan or the black and gold faithful to see Mason Rudolph participate in preseason games or anything. In fact, most of the Steelers insiders weren't allowed to talk about what they saw in training camp or OTAs or mini camp or whatever. He ends up playing one game. He does, in my opinion, he does decent. And if the Steelers, which was the in 2020, which was the last game of the year, it was against the Cleveland Browns, and in that game, let's go to it real quick. I don't think anyone remembers, but in the game against the Cleveland Browns, the Steelers had pulled majority of their starters, especially on defense. I think the Steelers win that game with Mason Rudolph if he had the defense still on the team, that without any of the defensive players out and any of the offensive players, because there was some of the offense of guys also taken out on the line. Marcus Pouncey wasn't there, DeCastro, things of that nature. A lot of the starters were gone, and so Mason almost won that game. He was 22 of 39 for 56.41%. That's kind of poor. He threw for 315 yards, first 315-yard game. He had 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a rating of 89.2. It's not a bad day. It's not a bad stats. If he had the starters around him, I guarantee you he's winning that game. 2021 comes around, right? And so Mason doesn't, there's the preseason happens, and the one thing that I've noticed about Mason in the 2021 preseason was he was kind of like that guy this is what he's sort of become now, is the guy that can move the ball between the 20s but can't get it into the end zone. And that's what I noticed out of him on 2021, even against the Lions there in the regular season, for when he came in against the COVID Ben. Came in for COVID Ben. I'm sorry. He played, in my opinion, better than he had played in 2019. I'd seen improvement. I'd seen a step up. The issue is that 2020 season had no video of him, nothing what he was doing in training camp or OTAs or anything, and no preseason to show that he improved from 2019. And that's where we're at today. I don't know. I don't think he's going to be on the 53-man roster come week 1. I think he's going to be some trade capital for a team that needs a quarterback, whether it's due to injury or poor play. If Drew Lock can't get it down in Seattle, early enough, or somebody gets injured somewhere else and they need a quality quarterback, and I can see the Pittsburgh Steelers dealing him for a 5th or 4th round pick. Especially if he lights it up in the preseason. Do not be surprised if we see Mason Rudolph play a significant amount of snaps in the preseason just for that. I think the Steelers are content with Mr. Trubisky going into week 1. I think that, looking back at 2019, the leash wasn't very long for Mason when you look at it. He had a game and a half that was pretty poor when he played against the Cleveland Browns and then the Bengals, where he got pulled for Duck, who started the year as a camp arm. So when you look at that situation there, you have Mason Rudolph, who was the Steelers gave a 1st-round grade, and supposedly the hopeful heir apparent for the franchise guy and the next guy in waiting, so to speak. His leash wasn't very long for a camp arm and Duck. So when you think of Mr. Trubisky this year and you think of Kenny Pickett this year, I don't think that leash is going to be longer than what than Mason's leash, when Mason had a camp arm behind him and Mitch has the heir apparent 1st-round pick, not grade, 1st-round pick, Kenny Pickett. I don't think that leash is going to be long, and I've been saying it for a while. I think that if the Steelers do not go into the New York Jets week 4 at home in Acrisure Stadium at least 2-1 at that point, going into that game, then Kenny Pickett starts that game. If the Steelers are 1-2 or 0-3 at that point, I for sure proceed Kenny Pickett at that point. He would have a full offseason, a full OTAs, training camp, full preseason, and a month to prepare in the regular season for the New York Jets. I think that is the time that the Steelers pull the trigger on Kenny Pickett and put him in. But those are my thoughts, guys. Please leave me in the comments. What do y'all think about Mason Rudolph? You think that he's gotten the short end of the stick, so to speak? Is he the guy that, or do you think that he is what he is? There is no, whether he's with the Pittsburgh Steelers or he gets traded or drafted somewhere else. There's no future outside of a backup quarterback position for Mason Rudolph. Or do you guys think that maybe perhaps with a change of venue and going somewhere else that he could be potentially a guy somewhere else? I wish and hope the best for the young man. I think he's a good person and a quality human being. It's unfortunate that he didn't, and it's unfortunate it didn't work out in the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's unfortunate that he was, all the stuff that he had to go through, especially in that 2019 season. It was one for the ages. If anybody has learned anything from about Mason Rudolph from that season, is that guy is tough. And so, or what tough is, because you don't take that physical type of assault with being knocked out or having a helmet taken on your head, or even the verbal assault / the personal problems that he had to deal with the accusations from Myles Garrett and come out of it without being, mentally and physically tough. And so he's a tough guy and a guy that, if Oladokin doesn't, show to be a decent backup, Mason Rudolph could be a guy that ends up signing a longer-term deal to be the backup. And if Mitch Trubisky plays well this year, I wouldn't be surprised if Mitch Trubisky gets dealt next year in the trade. If he is able to, get us to the playoffs and make a playoff run. If his stats aren't amazing, and Mitch Trubisky that is, then why are you going to keep him over Kenny Pickett? Because I believe that Kenny Pickett's going to be a better quarterback than Mitch Trubisky, whether it's, currently, in the future, whenever. I think that once we finally see him on the field and whatnot, it's going to be a better product with Kenny Pickett. I think if Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky are close, come the time where Kenny Pickett is somewhat ready for the speed of the game, given, like I said, those 3 weeks, against Cincinnati, against the Patriots. I'm sorry, I always stumble on that word. And against the Bengals, I think those are the games that we need to keep an eye on. Those are the games that I think that Mitch Trubisky starts for sure. And if he doesn't do something amazing, I don't think he finishes the season as a starting quarterback. If he's mediocre, I see that if the Steelers are 2-1 at that point, he's mediocre, and we're just still in contention. But the quarterback play is just, like I mentioned, then I think that the bye week is the time the Steelers do it. But we'll see. Mike Tomlin doesn't live in his fears, and he's not afraid to put a camp arm in there when you're in contention, so that way you can do something. And it showed to work. Whether it was the defense is not being prepared for a quarterback who's nobody's ever seen, that's left to be questioned. But with that being said, guys, that's all I have for y'all today. I know I tried to end this a little bit earlier, and it went a little bit longer than normal. I'm Daniel J. This is State of the Steelers.